the kitchen light and I see roaches.
What's good, everybody? What's good? It's your boy, it's hot outside. Cardinal Bud Crawford, or ES Red, if that's what you want to call me. Alright, y'all, so we back for a new topic. Today's topic is Underdog wins. Roy Jones picks Terence Crawford to win undisputed super fight versus Errol Spence Jr. Alright, y'all, so it's been a lot that's been said, man, over the past week. You know, still don't have an answer whether Terence Crawford's going to sign off on the fight or not. We don't know if he's going to go with another fight. And in the meantime, we don't know what Errol Spence is going to do if Terence Crawford doesn't sign off on the fight. But, you know, in the past week, we have heard from a few former celebrity fighters, Roy Jones, Mike Tyson. And Roy Jones said that he's picking Terence Crawford, and not only is he picking Terence Crawford to win the fight, he's picking him to win the fight in 6 rounds. That easy. Like, I don't know what Roy sees in Terence Crawford that has him believing he can beat him that easily or that quickly. But obviously he has confidence in his fighter that he's picking. What could Roy see in Terence Crawford? Maybe that he saw him in himself, or characteristics that he displayed at the same time in his career. The only thing I could think of is the way that, you know, maybe Roy Jones used to use the ring. You know, like I said in my last video, Terence Crawford does have some speed. He doesn't have Manny Pacquiao or Roy Jones speed, but he possesses speed with a switching stance, which allows him to do a lot of things. You know, I got some comments saying that he can fight off the back foot, that he can go, you know, with both hands, that he has the foot work, that he has the foot movement and footwork. So he has intangibles working for him, but I don't know if he has it all the way together like a Roy Jones Jr. had it. You know, Roy Jones could do amazing things in the boxing ring, stick his head out, let people punch at him, and then just flurry him and catch him with all type of shots that they never saw coming. He knew how to use angles very, very well. He knew how to what I call chicken dancing, where he would, you know, do the little, and, you know, throw punches off. He's like dancing and throwing punches at the same time. Roy Jones was an extremely exciting fighter to watch work inside a boxing ring. Now, anybody who's watched Terence Crawford fight knows Terence Crawford is nowhere near that talented. Which is why, I wouldn't even say Roy Jones would have beat Errol Spence in 6 rounds. I think he would have beat him, but maybe not in 6 rounds. I think he might win 12 rounds with Errol Spence Jr. But, you know, Terence Crawford is definitely not a Roy Jones Jr. He cannot, his footwork, his foot and hand coordination is not as good as Roy Jones was. It's not even as good to me as a Manny Pacquiao was. But he does have good footwork and good hand movement, and he can switch. But it's to me, it's having to put them all together. I don't understand how Roy could pick him in 6 rounds when I don't think he has it all the way together yet. I don't think it's all synchronized completely yet. He does, you know, and I don't think it ever will be. He's 30-something years old. At this point, what he does great is what he does great. You know, he's not really adding much more to his repertoire, other than maybe being a more defensive fighter. But I think that's the only other thing he can add is being a little more defensive and learning when to throw punches and when not to throw punches, when to absorb punches, when to roll out for punches, those type of things. I don't think I don't think his foot-eye coordination is going to get any better as he gets older. So what could Roy Jones be talking about? What could Roy Jones be seeing in Terence Crawford that he's not seeing in Errol Spence Jr.? Me personally, I really don't know. I think that perhaps he just feels more connected to Terence Crawford than he does Errol Spence. Errol Spence, like I said, he's not the guy I would personally want to hang out with every day. He's the guy, if I'm going to the club, I'm going to the hood, I'm going to hang out with Earl. If I'm going, to do some normal stuff, I'm probably going to be hanging out with Terence Crawford. So I think that's why a lot of people go with Terence Crawford. Sometimes in sports, it's just more based off of who you like and not really who's the more talented. You're just going off of who you like a lot of times. But I think in this scenario, Errol Spence is the more talented of the two. But there has to be a reason that Roy Jones said he thinks, Terence Crawford can knock him out in 6 rounds. I really don't see it personally. I don't see the fight going down like that. I actually see the fight going 12 rounds, but I just think Errol Spence will be the guy who causes more damage in the fight. One thing that's funny about Roy Jones Jr. is he's one of those fighters I spoke like 2 videos about who went through that career. He didn't really blow his money, but he seems almost a little bitter to me, the way his career ended. And the way Antonio Tarver had beat him up at the end of his... Because we can say one thing, he might be predicting Terence Crawford to win versus Errol Spence, but why didn't he see the Antonio Tarver and a whooping coming? I will say that. Why ain't he see that coming? Because I'm not trying to hate on Roy, and Roy had a heck of a career. I like Roy, but Roy at the end of his career made horrible decisions and didn't see the obvious coming. And that's what I'm saying about Terence Crawford. He might be at that point in his career to where he's already seeming fearful to want to take the fight. He's already kind of making a big deal about the purse split. I feel like he's preparing to lose. And I think, the hype train is going to put him in position to get embarrassed. And almost embarrassed like Roy Jones did. Even though Roy Jones was up 10 times more popular and more famous than Terence Crawford is. But he runs the risk of, when he gets in the ring with Errol Spence, of not taking Errol Spence seriously enough. And that's what I think a lot of this is becoming a distraction. The lawsuit, all these celebrities hyping you up, even though you really have limited welterweight experience, and Errol Spence has championed welterweight experience. So I think when they finally do get in the ring, it's gonna bode well for Errol Spence Jr. because he's coming in the favorite, but people are talking about him like he's the underdog. And it's really only it's a lot of fans that are talking about him like he's the underdog. They're not just Terence Crawford fans. There's some people that say they're neutral to the conversation and they're just going based solely off of boxing skill, which is always a fabrication, because if you know who Terence Crawford is and you know who Errol Spence is, you've already made your decision on who you like more out of those 2 guys. So I don't think it's a situation of people being neutral. I'm not even neutral. I don't consider myself a fan of either one of these guys, but I'm not neutral in the conversation because I do feel like Errol Spence is going to win the fight. So I'm biased at that point to Errol Spence. People will say I'm biased to Errol Spence, which would be true. I think he's going to win the fight. So, I'm not neutral in the conversation, even though I don't consider myself a fan of either one of these guys. I don't feel like I'm a Spence fan. I don't feel like I'm a Crawford fan. I thought I came in neutral because I was hoping to get to see Pacquiao fight one or both of those guys. But, I thought I was going to get one fight and end up falling apart. So, even my input onto the fight is no longer a neutral input. It's based solely off the fact that I'm riding with Errol Spence Jr. I'm going off of what I feel is going to play out. And they're, like I said earlier, they're talking about Errol Spence like he's the underdog in this fight. Even though he's the three-time welterweight champion, even though he did all the heavy lifting, even though he beat all the fighters that Terence Crawford beat as champions, when Terence Crawford only beat them once again when they were laid off, for lack of a better word, for a significant amount of time, man. You know, I think that means a lot. You know, I think the fact of the matter is Terence Crawford can come into this fight overconfident because he's not really, at this point, being fed good information. People are thinking that he's going to beat Errol Spence in 6 rounds, that Errol Spence is not taking this fight seriously. And I think the person who's not taking it seriously and who's not focusing enough is Terence Bud Crawford. You guys got to let me know what y'all think about that. I don't think he's focused at this point. I think the celebrities are kind of blowing his head up a little bit. Well, let me know what y'all think about that. It's your boy, Cardinal Bud Crawford. Or ES Red, if that's what you want to call me. Hit me up on all the social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, YouTubes. You will probably more than likely only get a response on YouTube though. So if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. It's your boy, and we are...
Yeah, I see niggas get greedy, get handcuffed up on TV.